There we have it. Hello, world. It's me, Riley Soliner. Welcome to Clash Clown, episode 5. Bash Clown. Woo, woo, woo. Woo, woo, woo. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you to those of you who are emailing me your feedback and your thoughts on what I'm doing here. I really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening. Ooh, this was an idea in my head for so long. And now, finally, I'm doing something with it. And it feels good. Clash Clown, crafty, communal, countercultural, contradictory, confounding. Clash Clown. I'm enjoying it. I'm glad you are too. Thank you for being here. Okay, so on the agenda today, I'm going to talk about professional wrestling, one of my favorite artistic mediums. Now, why? Well, I can remember telling you that my mission statement and my intention and my thesis for this whole podcast was investigating and exploring and mansplaining the connection and the overlap that I see between clowning and clowns and anti-fascism and countercultural anti-fascist entertainment and aesthetic and action. But I'm sticking to my comfort zone this week as I continue to lay out where my influences and my philosophy lies. And I can't do that without talking about professional wrestling for an hour. Okay? It's all going to come around. It's going to come together. And we're not in a rush anyway, right? It's not like anything really dramatic and in your face with fascism creeping into the mainstream is happening right now, right? No big deal. Nothing to be alarmed about. So let's sit here and let's talk wrestling. Okay. The late 90s. Let's flash back to my grandmother's house, my grandparents' house in New Jersey. I'm on winter break. I'm a little boy. I'm there with my father, Kevin Schmevin. And we're staying at Bubby and Ted's. Zelda Soliner, Ted Soliner. They've welcomed us in. And what am I doing? I feel like I'm in my dad's room, or maybe I'm in the guest room. And I'm playing with old records. There's the Alvin and the Chipmunks record. And maybe I'm messing with the turntable speed so that the chipmunks sound even higher pitched and even faster. And I'm putting quarters in the like heavy die-cast metal mechanical banks, coin banks, that I would later discover, oh, these are really racist. These are really racist little coin banks. But that's not the point of this story. The point of this story is I hear Zelda calling from downstairs. Riley, come downstairs. And then I hear Zelda go, wait, what do you want me to tell him? And Kevin whispers something to Zelda. Come downstairs. Mankind is on TV. And I know exactly what that means. And I run to the TV room, and on television, making a cameo on family-friendly TGIF sitcom Boy Meets World is Mankind. And if you don't know, Mankind has shaggy, unkempt, long brown hair. He wears a partially buttoned, mangled, white collared shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He's got a skinny black tie on, loosely knotted, just hanging around his neck. I think he has maybe a tie-dye t-shirt underneath the white shirt. Probably wearing black sweatpants, white sneakers. And you can't see his face because he has a brown leather strappy mask on his face. And his voice cracks and he's deranged. And for a minute, just picture being uh like a suburban New Jersey grandma in the late 90s. And pop culture is already so indecipherable. And suddenly your grandson is barreling into the living room to see Mankind make a cameo on Boy Meets World. And it turns out that Mankind is a professional wrestler. He looks absolutely nothing like the platonic ideal or just your idea of what a wrestler is. Some kind of aggressive, maybe conventionally handsome muscle man in tights, in briefs, or in uh, long, long boys, long tights. Or maybe, you saw something in the 80s or 90s, some muscle man in just a ridiculous costume, some kind of approximation of a fireman or an undertaker, or God, what's another great example? Just I don't know, like a Bruno Sammartino type, just a classic uh, strongman who flexes and shows his might through his physical combat, right? No, no, no. Mankind is like a freak. He's like a deranged freak. And I couldn't get enough of him because I was a huge wrestling fan in the boom of the late 90s, right? And Mankind was the coolest to me because he was funny. He was so many things, but he was funny. He was witty. He was self-aware. There was this postmodern self-awareness of being the exact opposite of what people thought a successful wrestler should look and sound and fight like. He was hardcore. He was the hardcore champion. He's the hardcore legend now, which means he didn't fight just in the ring. He fought outside the ring and he used everything you could use in the arena as a weapon. Steel chairs, thumbtacks, a baseball bat wrapped, or no, a 2x4 wrapped in barbed wire, tables, ladders, stop signs. He before he broke out as like a comedic underdog, he was this deranged Hannibal Lecter type freak that would roam the boiler rooms of whatever arena the WWF event was taking place in. But he had this breakout as like a self-aware. It got to the point where he could be known as Mankind, or maybe he was just referred to by his real name, Mick Foley. Or maybe once that line was crossed, he could dip into his other personas, Dude Love, a womanizing hippie lover boy, or even the outlaw Cactus Jack, who was just insane and the toughest of them all. The three faces of Foley. So, he's also, on top of all that, the author of the first 300 plus page book I ever read. I think I was reading that book at the time while I was on winter break at Bubby and Ted's. Also, here's another thing. I think, okay, there's like a big deal of like, wrestling superstar John Cena being the record, the record holder for most Make-A-Wish Foundation wishes fulfilled for children in hospitals. I could be wrong about this, but I think after befriending Tori Amos, Mick Foley became and might still be the record holding most hours logged as a volunteer uh, phone operator for RAIN, the foundation that handles incoming calls, people who are victims of domestic abuse and sexual assault, which is just another interesting wrinkle of this professional wrestler's life. He's also insanely obsessed with Santa Claus. I'm getting okay. I'm getting off track here. Mick Foley, scraggly, hardcore, self-aware, hilarious, witty Mick Foley um, is way up there for me as an influence, as a role model, as an inspiration for clowning. Because, like I said before, there was this line crossed where it didn't really matter which persona he was putting on the surface. People hung on every word and cheered for every movement and every small victory of this underdog that was residing in the spirit of this performer. And it was so fun and so engaging to watch this guy uh, take this very self-serious, very prides itself on having a hard line of what seems real and what is orchestrated for the audience. But it became okay. It became cool to play with reality on the audience side of things when you watched Mick Foley perform in this environment. And that's such a clown. That's such a boundary crossing, not just crossing, but towing the line. He did such a good job of being able to walk that line and make you believe one minute and then let you in on the joke the other minute, make you laugh and then make you scream with the way that he would put his body on the line. The way he's I think most famous for being thrown off of Hell in a Cell. What is that? A 20-foot cage? I should know this. 20-foot cage on crashing down onto the announcer's table. Man, he could. It's insane. And then also like he came up making a name for himself working in Japanese wrestling promotions where they innovated the death match, the exploding barbed wire death match, which I mean, what does that sound like to you? That's pretty much what it is. Let's see. Let's fast forward 20 years to the first time I went to UCBW cage match, okay? I had a few months before moved to New York City specifically to do improv at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater. And there's this hot show on Thursday nights at 11 every week called UCBW Cage Match. It's like a battle of the bands. One improv team performs, then the other team performs, and the audience gets to vote with little paper ballots about who gets to come back next week. The show doesn't start like a normal improv show, though. The lights go down. You hear a pulsing heartbeat and a heart monitor. I know instantly this was the entrance music for WWE wrestler Taz. Na, 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 na. And out come two guys dressed in costume, cheap wigs, sport jackets, and they're calling themselves TT Billingsworth and the Captain. And they start doing really funny, fast, witty hosting bit as wrestling commentators. and they're like beat for beat. They have the energy of Jerry the King Lawler and Jim Ross. And this is flashing me back instantly. And suddenly some other music hits. And who comes out? I would later know him as Matt Little. He'd become a good friend of mine. But I first knew Matt Little as Wall Street. Here comes just a smug, just completely stone-faced, completely committed Matt Little in business suit, sunglasses, and a Bluetooth headset on his ear. He grabs the mic and he starts railing us, and we start booing. And this is just a dream come true because I had never been to a professional wrestling show. I'd only watch it on television, right? And everyone is in on the joke. Everyone is in on this shared reality. Remember, I think last week when I talked about the rules changing when you enter a certain space. And yeah, and to be given permission to boo loudly at this villain was so exciting. And the way Wall Street would just brush off the boos, keep booing. I don't speak poor. He's calling us all poor. We boo louder. All you temps and dog walkers, he would call us. And he starts going on this long speech. I don't remember exactly what it was about, but I'm sure, he called himself by his other names, the Thrillionaire. I'm sure he listed out the moves that he was going to use to defeat his opponent that night, moves like the Dow Jones Industrial Elbow. And I was hooked, man. First team comes out. They're a Herald team, one of the house teams at UCB. They do a good job. Later that night, I would see another team come out, Death by Ruru. Little did I know, they were currently on a legendary hot streak of victories. I would vote for them that night. But in the intermission between these two improv shows, I saw a match between, man, I'm going to guess Wall Street and maybe it was Muscles Marinara. And I don't remember who won, but I remember there was a referee. There was referee Rattlesnake Frank. He counted the 1, 2, 3. And the whole time, T.T. Billingsworth and the captain were doing commentary. And they did such an amazing job of watching the match. Everyone would react to a wrestling move. And then the punchline would be TT or the captain would say what the move was and everybody would laugh. It was very rudimentary stage combat. It was very obvious how scripted it was. It was very obvious how unathletic and, joke forward it was, but it was wrestling, and they were just the intermission of the show, but it was the device of it was the container of the night, was this wrestling energy that got you excited to cheer and boo and then laugh really hard and stay engaged and invested in the competition between these two improv teams. Wrestling, professional wrestling, even as a device, fully knowing that this is just a joke, became such an enticing and fun way to hook an audience, to keep an audience engaged, and to get the audience involved, to make it okay to participate. Again, magic circle, that Venn diagram of, performance in one circle, audience in the other, and the performers, the clowns, the wrestlers beckoning, inviting the audience into that magic circle. In this case, the squared circle, not physically, but with their energy, to cheer, to boo, to be personally affected when called dog walkers and temps, things like that, to chant, to be invested in that way. I became known at UCBW Cage Match for sitting in the front row every week, for being highly invested in the outcome of the improv show, but also highly invested in trying to direct, conjure, participate in the energy of the UCBW portion of the show, to come up with chants, to yell out, to be that one fan being like, that's fucked up, man, just to be so into it. That eventually led to me being a part of UCBW. I was kind of obnoxious, right? Yeah, it's at times a very obnoxious art form that we're emulating. So I was obnoxious, and I was what, 20 at the time. I had all the energy in the world for this show, and I felt like I really got it. And so eventually I would be a part of UCBW for many years. But let me zoom out for now. Let's talk about professional wrestling as a neighbor, a partner, and a travel buddy alongside clown. Let's think of a carnival. You got the games, you have the rides, and then maybe you have a ring. Maybe you have a wrestling match, and not too far away you have either a stage or a show of some kind for the clowns. But they're in the exact same world. They're the same realm. This idea of traveling from town to town in this show, this idea of hooking the audience either by engaging them with this story or engaging them through participation, through means that are obvious on the surface and means that are subtle and maybe a little deceptive until you smarten up to them. There's so much overlap from the origin to today with clowning and wrestling that I consider wrestling one of my main tools to help me perform and write and teach clowning. Um, let's see. Professional wrestling is the only live theater on television today. People pack arenas to watch what they know is a show, right? Like, I think a big criticism or a big question about wrestling is, oh, isn't it fake? Don't you know that it's fake? And that's lobbied as a criticism, or that's lobbied as a reason to be skeptical of its legitimacy as a entertainment, right? But first of all, I mean, yes, there is fun in being a child and not knowing how orchestrated, how choreographed it is. But there is also so much fun. I think that there's too much emphasis or not enough context placed on the idea that the audience isn't in on it. If you go to, and I highly recommend finding a local wrestling promotion, an independent wrestling show to go to. And to me, I don't know, maybe it'll be different for you. It's very easy to get caught up in the emotion and the excitement of this. And I know fully that these are people who have full-time jobs, and in their free time, they train and they practice and they craft characters and personas and fighting styles to put on a show for people. I know all of this, right? Most people who go to these shows do. But it is, when you see the show, it's an environment where the rules change a little bit and you're swept up in the concept of watching a fight. And to me, I mean, I'm not into quote unquote legitimate combat sports. I've never been to a UFC or a boxing match. I'm not interested in that. I don't want to see people looking to knock each other out on purpose. You know, I'm looking to see the craft of masking it and building a story and entertaining me in multiple ways. It's a variety show. So you're going to see multiple kinds of styles and personas and people in the ring. And to be caught up in that, to yell, fight, get him, yay, boo, to root for somebody, to root against somebody. But it's all under a guise, right? And it's all this fiction that we're buying into. But by buying into the fiction just a little bit, by suspending your disbelief just a little bit, you can allow yourself to get carried away in all the fun of observing this show, this exhibition of all of these wacky talents. And then comes the real unexpected moment where something happens that looks so convincing or so unintentional. And now you don't even know if that was real or not. I hope that I've explained in the past that one of my favorite things about clowning is this kind of layered sneak attack. This idea that, oh, I don't know about clowns. I don't really find clowns funny. And then the clown does something that makes you go, oh, wow, okay, that was funny. I wasn't expecting that. And then something happens later in the show that gives way to a beautiful moment. I wasn't even expecting to have an emotional reaction other than maybe ha ha ha. And suddenly I'm joining hands and singing with this audience. This is incredible. This is beautiful. I think a similar thing happens at a professional wrestling show. Is this going to be good? Are they really pros, or like, is this? And then you get into the chants, you get into watching these beautiful entrances and these personas and these fighting styles. And then maybe in the main event, you got two really talented wrestlers. You got a referee that really knows how to sell the idea of this match. And something happens. Maybe it's just a kick out when you were expecting the end of the match, and suddenly it's this shocker that the underdog was able to kick out of the finishing move. Or maybe it's a move that looked so dangerous that you actually gasp and you wonder, did that hurt? And you're caught up just because you allow yourself to give into the convention, give into the excitement of the show. So there's a similarity, there's an overlap that I see between clowning as a performance art and wrestling. I mean, it's just also so clear when it's a life journey for these types of performers. When you see a really good clown and you see a really good wrestler, you understand that they are more than just a clown or a wrestler. A clown can be a musician and a dancer and a poet and like a craftsman, a teacher, an acrobat, a gymnast, and a wrestler is a lot of those same things. A strongman, a stuntman, an acrobat, a gymnast, a fighter, an athlete, an orator, a comedian, just above all, they are performers that really dedicate themselves to walking into a space and taking the temperature of the room and doing their best to try to make you believe for a moment. They, like arch manipulators of a collective emotion in the room. Playing the audience like an orchestra is so fun. And to be part of that orchestra, to be on the same page, to be given such a clear assignment. This is a bad dude. Boo this man. Oh, he cheated. Yell. Scream. Get the referee's attention. This man cheated. Oh, this is someone worth standing behind. This is a champion. This is a hero. This is someone who's standing up, not just for what's right, but for the beautiful sport of professional wrestling. That's my champion. It's fun, man. And let's see. I guess, why not do a little vocab lesson for wrestling? Right? I'll do it quick because I'm guessing if you made it this far, you already know. But maybe you don't. Okay? Where to start? Over. Over. Not the end. Over means you got them in the palm of your hand. Over means this wrestler knows how to get a reaction with something. Either a character can be over, so when they enter, when their entrance music hits, they get a huge reaction. A wrestler can have a move or a catchphrase that's super over. When they say their catchphrase, everybody says it along with him or her. Or maybe they got a move where even just assuming the posture of setting up for this move gets a huge reaction. In his heyday, when The Rock would hunch down in the corner and put his hands on his knees and he'd rear back to deliver what? The rock bottom? Yeah, everyone would go insane. And after delivering the rock bottom, he would stand over his opponent and grab his elbow pad. And just the gesture of grabbing the elbow pad was so over because they knew that he was going to peel it off and throw it into the audience, right? To do the people's elbow. So over to have that level of control, to have that level of anticipation for something that you're doing. And then wrestlers or conventions in wrestling get put over. You know, if there's a really well established wrestler, a veteran who is scheduled that night to lose in the the scripted competition between him and a rookie, well, it's kind of the veteran's job to put over the rookie, right? To put over something. Oh, we're going in a different creative direction. Your new finishing move is this. So, so veteran, when you get hit with this move, put it over. Put this over. Or this is the new, we're debuting a new championship belt, a new title belt, and you really have to put it over with a speech about how much you want to win this belt because how much it would mean to be the first champion. So put this over, put this tournament over, put this event over, put this night over, this show. Put this, put this victory over, right? To put over an opponent, a belt, a move. And one of the big ways you do that is you sell. You sell. Okay. So maybe these look like strange foreign punches that you've never seen in a real fight before. Why is the wrestler stomping his foot on this noisy ring when he's punching an opponent? What advantage does it give to the puncher to punch someone while stomping your foot on the ground? Well, let's put that aside for a second. Why is the person getting punched reacting so huge to getting punched and not putting his arms up and not fighting back? It's because he's selling. Even if it's obvious maybe to an adult that the punch didn't land, he's selling the idea that this punch hurts. Why is he not getting up right after being slammed to the ground? Because he's selling his neck. You can sell a body part that's being injured. Why is this wrestler wearing a neck brace, even though I know that they're not really injured? If they were actually injured, they wouldn't be even showing up to fight. Why is he wearing bandages? Why is he wearing a brace? It's because he's selling his past injuries. It's probably because he's going to be in a match where his opponent is going to work that part of the body. He's going to use his offensive moves on that knee, on that bandaged knee. And so the injured opponent is going to sell the idea that it hurts so bad that he doesn't know if he can even keep fighting if he keeps getting hit in the knee like that. He's selling. Selling is also one of my favorite moments, selling moments in all of wrestling it wasn't even physical contact. It wasn't even two opponents in the same ring together, but it was the dastardly, conniving villain, Triple H, in the ring, and my hero, Mick Foley, on the entrance ramp, talking about how he just doesn't really have it in him anymore to fight Triple H because Triple H is so tough and he's just going to cheat anyway, and he has the world in the palm of his hands. And Mick Foley can't really fight Triple H. Certainly can't even win. But he knows someone who can. And Mick Foley unbuttons that shirt. And underneath that shirt is the signature t-shirt of Cactus Jack. It didn't even need to be said, but just changing costumes in front of everybody, stripping down to his Cactus Jack costume, the roar of the crowd when Triple H dropped his jaw to signify that he had no idea what to do now that Cactus Jack was coming to the ring. And not just Mick Foley, but Cactus Jack. The way Triple H sold the idea that this was a completely different man, even though it was just the same man taking off his shirt, was masterful, villainous selling of this idea that this underdog now has a shot at beating this guy. Selling. So I think selling is one of my favorite concepts to bring over from wrestling into clowning. Selling the idea that this, I don't know, this kazoo or this orange or this stuffed fish means something to you. Or selling the idea that this interaction that you're having with an audience member means the world. Sell. And take your time. That's another thing about wrestling is it's slow. These fights are not boxing matches, but they're designed to tell a story, and big parts of that story are really taking your time, from the way that the wrestlers walk to the ring slowly, the way that they enter the ring slowly. Everyone has their way of doing it to convey their character and their style, the way that they set up for a wrestling move, the way that they speak and they repeat their catchphrase so the audience can chant along. It's all a way of selling. And then also selling the idea of it means everything that I'm holding this shiny golden belt right now, that in real life is kind of just a prop, right? But in the universe, this shared reality of this show, this is it. I worked my whole life to hold this belt and hold it up to the lights so that the light glints off this belt. And I'll fight till my dying breath to keep holding on to this championship belt. And this belt represents everything excellent about this company that I'm so proud to be a part of. It is all about selling, and the idea of selling the importance and the excitement and the significance of everything going on in every second of this show. And if you, as a clown, can, as a performer, sell this idea of pleasure, sell this idea of standing on this chair is really scary. Sell the idea of this connection between you and me in the audience means something. Then you end up not having to do very much work in trying to do something dazzling, because you've gotten the audience invested. And then, of course, the secret word, there's kayfabe. Kayfabe was code word in the carnival days for that fiction that the audience isn't supposed to know about. A lot of people say kayfabe is dead because with wrestling being a multi-billion-dollar industry, and the internet spreading everything faster than a secretive business can contain it, kayfabe is in some ways dead. But then there's also, well, let me explain a little bit before I'll be quick, because who wants to hear me talk about kayfabe, right? But it's this idea that that the audience doesn't know everything, and they shouldn't know everything. Like maybe in the old territorial traveling days, the kayfabe was these two wrestlers are mortal enemies. And so to keep kayfabe to keep the fiction alive. These two friends who had a choreographed fight in the ring could never travel together, because if they were seen, and God forbid photographed, traveling together, just shooting the shit, then the kayfabe is lost. Then it turns out that these guys are friends, and how could they ever sit in a car together? I thought they were trying to kill each other last night. Keep kayfabe. And there is a historical precedent for keeping kayfabe in clowning as well. Lots of clowns in the old days, in the old circus days, would just straight up lie about their origins, or the origins of their material, just to make their lives and their jobs more mysterious. And I don't know where that began first. What am I anyway? But that blurring the line of reality is so fun. That's another margin, right? That's another overlap. There's something so sweet and so exciting about this. Is something that I try to explain to my students in my clown classes when we're getting ready to put on a show. It's one thing, and it would be fine to just put on a show where it's actors and comedians and just amateurs who like doing this, putting on red noses and doing a clown show for their friends and loved ones, right? But there's something else that we could shoot for here, and that is doing a show that is so strange, with portraying characters so committed that for a moment there, we convince the audience that this is a clown show written, devised, and performed by clowns. No one who knows how to make a sensible show put this together. This is through and through a clown show. And even if just for a moment you can somehow, in some way, convince an audience that you're not watching human beings perform as clowns, but you're watching clowns do a clown show, that is a sweet spot. That is something that I love to aspire to really trying to make people believe you are this strange, unsocialized space alien creature of trying to make a connection with this this stranger, this human audience they can't fully comprehend, but they love connecting with. That's my kayfabe for a clown show, in my opinion. But it comes in it comes in a lot of different forms. The pratfall, was that intentional? If you can make it look clumsy enough, your elegant dancer training translated into falling so you don't hurt yourself, but you slam the floor in such a way that it looks like you really did not mean to do that. That's a kayfabe. How did he do that? It's a magic trick, right? And again, here's an example of kayfabe, right? And just the rules changing. So there's my public access robot clown show that I got to do 3 episodes of, Klon, one of my most proud achievements. And in the 3rd episode, Klon, the clown robot, is dressed as a cop to get into his inventor's apartment. And I have a cop hat and a cop t-shirt and a big fake mustache. And when I just when I turned to the audience and removed the mustache with a big goofy grin on my face, and the whole audience goes, "Whoa!" Just playing into, it's not even suspending disbelief, but it's just playing into the fun, the fictional fun of, "Oh, that really surprised us, Klon." It's just a cute little moment of an audience being so complicit in the joy and the ridiculousness. God, where do I go from here? Right back to UCBW, where no, this was not an athletic competition. No, this was not even uh, like an exciting fight, but it's just a clever, stupid little way of getting some stage combat and telling some jokes, but to get an a too cool for school improv comedy audience that's there not to see the intermission, but there to see the improv, to get this audience who does not like wrestling because wrestling is not cool, to get them to come around and to chant and to cheer and to boo for our stupid little stage combat intermission was the most exciting feeling. And I'll tell you, man, those years doing UCBW, planning matches backstage at UCB in a dingy basement that we shared with a McDonald's, just trying to come up with silly moves and jokes for the moves. Those were some extremely formative experiences in honing cooperation, sense of humor, and just throwing ridiculously stupid but joy-filled ideas against the wall and then trying them out for a tough crowd that we knew when we would win that audience over. It felt amazing. And that I didn't know it at the time how that was such important clowning training, hours logged as referee Robot Riley. And then later, when friends of UCBW broke off so that we could do a regular monthly pay-per-view show, XSW, extremely serious wrestling. And I graduated from referee to my own wrestling persona, Sean from Michaels, the master of the art and craft of wrestling, the crafty boy, the art make kid. If you really want, one of my pandemic era projects was I made a documentary as Sean from Michaels called Champion Kinda. Man, where do I go from here? Oh my God. I mean, there was the night that Mick Foley himself made an appearance at UCBW 20 years after I was watching, maybe closer to 30 years after I was watching Mankind on Boy Meets World. Gracious, funny, down for anything, generous Mick Foley towered over us as the hardcore legend, and he fully got it. He understood the comedy. He understood how seriously we took this very stupid bit, and he was a special guest enforcer that night for a UCBW match. And so I was on stage with Mick Foley, and he was so amazing because we knew we didn't want him to fight. I mean, his body has been battered by decades of extremely dangerous stunts and injury. And the first thing that he said to all of us was, "Guys, I love being here. The only thing I'm not going to do is go down to the floor." And we were like, "No, whoa, Mick, no. We don't want you to, no." But that was an incredible night. That's probably going to be the cover photo of this episode, is me as referee Robot Riley freaking out that Mick Foley and I are sharing a stage together. Anyway, Mick Foley inspired a lot of comedians who were wrestling fans, and he inspired a lot of wrestlers. I mean, I think his postmodern, his self-aware, his kind of ironic winking, but can really get down to serious business approach to the match, to persona, to wrestling, inspired people like Colt Cabana, who he himself revolutionized the wrestling industry when he started a t-shirt company that was able to bring income to independent wrestlers who didn't have that reach before. I mean, we're talking Orange Cassidy. I think maybe, oh my God. Like, okay. So the deal with UCBW and XSW, my close friend, Mitchell Stephen Fesh, who was a lifelong wrestling fan, who I credit with getting me back into wrestling. Just his love and his charismatic enthusiasm for wrestling got me back into watching and being interested in wrestling. And his understanding of his own sense of humor and how wrestling fit into that. I mean, he kind of reshaped UCBW in an image that made it easier for people to understand and craft their own characters and approach and sense of humors, and how that intersected with coming up with moves and a fighting style and a philosophy. He did so much for this very small, very specific community of fake comedy wrestlers, right? But he took some classes in Philadelphia at Chikara, a wrestling company that was heavily inspired by comic book characters and cartoons and things like that. And so he started making friends with the teachers there, including he was known at the time as a luchador named Fire Ant, but he would later become internet famous, and then later famous for his semi-comedic, postmodern, ironic wrestling character, Orange Cassidy, whose whole gimmick, whose whole approach, whose whole fighting style and persona is based off of like a very quick joke that Paul Rudd did, a physical comedy bit that Paul Rudd did in Wet Hot American Summer, where he just didn't want to clean the kitchen, so he's just kind of wearing a leather jacket or a denim jacket and just kind of slumping and through his chores or whatever. So Orange Cassidy as the king of sloth style, this lazy wrestler who doesn't really want to wrestle, but can kind of play possum and fool his opponents into a compromised position. The wrestler who puts his hands in his pockets because he doesn't want to be there. The wrestler who gives his thumbs up to the crowd but can't even be bothered to put his thumb up the whole way. Look into Orange Cassidy if you don't know. And he's such an incredible prime example of not only a comedic wrestler who can really go in the ring when it's time to actually wrestle, but who can play the audience. I mean, when he got signed to All Elite Wrestling in 2019, he was kind of a comedic side character, backing up his friends in a tag team. And then finally, through enough of these visual gags that he would do, he was getting such a reaction that he finally got a match at a pay-per-view called Revolution. And the way the audience gets behind the idea of Orange Cassidy finally having a match, the way that they get behind the idea that he's finally going to try for once, and the audience reacts to every little thing he's doing, like human bodies are exploding in the ring, but he's not even hitting people. He's just waving his hand as if he's, signifying that I'd hit you if I had the energy to. And the audience like this, the shared joke reality that the audience gets behind turns it into an unbelievable moment that later in the match, you think he might actually win this thing, and the audience is standing on their feet in fervor. Man, Orange Cassidy, a hero of physical comedy and professional wrestling that makes you believe. Characters, I mean, and a great example, another one who's gotten famous recently, Toni Storm, timeless Toni Storm, an Australian wrestler. She went from playing kind of a generic like rocker chick persona to have like getting hit with a move, getting like some kind of combination of amnesia and nervous breakdown that turned her into a delusional movie star from the golden era of movies. And so when she appears on screen, she's in black and white, and she wears these gowns and these 40s era athletic bathing suit looking outfits, and she speaks in this transatlantic accent, and her makeup smears, and she poses, and it's just playing into this ridiculous reality. It's so fun to watch these wrestlers get creative and have fun with playing with this reality. Even a more conventional wrestler, we go back to like the 90s boom, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock. They were tough, and they spoke in fighting words, but they had catchphrases. They had ways to signify. They had ways to be funny, and I feel like that is the missing puzzle piece for a wrestler that isn't the full package, right? They have to find a way to make the audience laugh, even if just for a moment. They don't have to be a comedy character, but something really comes together when they have the self-awareness, the confidence to flex a moment of levity, and it really endears the audience. Okay, back even further. Oh my God, I haven't even mentioned Andy Kaufman. I mean, watching Andy Kaufman with my dad and watching, the Mighty Mouse clip from SNL and watching him on Taxi and learning that he wouldn't break character between scenes. And then, of course, seeing that he declared himself the intergender wrestling champion of the world. And this is at a time when women's liberation was entering the lexicon, right? And to watch him, he didn't know at the time that this was prearranged and this was agreed upon between him and the woman who got in the ring. But he was, rubbing their face in the mat and just doing these degrading things and talking about women like they were idiots, and he was really going for making his persona distasteful and to be actually hated by his audience because, again, playing the audience like an orchestra and wrestling being just one of his passions, he didn't let up. It got to the point where he would, as one of the biggest TV stars of the 70s, he would fly to Memphis, Tennessee, when wrestling was still this territorial thing. So Memphis was just like a wrestling capital. And he would have this persona, this Hollywood Andy Kaufman persona. I'm from Hollywood. Therefore, all of you hillbilly hicks in the audience, I'm better than all of you. And this, if you don't know, is a bar of soap. And you use it like this to clean your body. And this is toilet paper. And you use this to wipe yourself clean after you're done using the bathroom. But you wouldn't know that. And this was at a time when kayfabe was still thriving, alive and well. And so, that postmodern self-awareness, that existed, right? But what also existed was having an easier time convincing people that this was real and that Andy Kaufman was a monster who everyone would salivate at the idea of Andy Kaufman getting his comeuppance. TV star, legitimate TV star Andy Kaufman, in his free time, for free, he would not accept payment for this, but for the love of the game, would go to Memphis to eventually have a wrestling match with Jerry the King Lawler, Tennessee wrestling hero and sexual deviant, Jerry the King Lawler. And yeah, you can look up on YouTube, I'm from Hollywood, the Andy Kaufman story. That is a good watch. And Andy Kaufman extended the kayfabe of his deranged, obsessive wrestling persona to the wrestlers themselves. There's a spiritual sequel to I'm from Hollywood that you should look out for called My Breakfast with Blassie, where Andy Kaufman invites a very old school wrestler named Classy Freddie Blassie to a diner in Hollywood. And little does Freddie Blassie know, Andy Kaufman's filming the whole thing, hidden camera. It's a prank. It's an hour-long prank on Freddie Blassie, who thinks that Andy Kaufman is just this wrestling obsessed celebrity who thinks he knows something about wrestling. Meanwhile, Kaufman is pranking Freddie Blassie. It's fucking insane, man. Another reality bending hero of mine, Andy Kaufman. Where else do I want to take this? I mean, okay, clown and wrestling. We got to talk about the clown boss of Los Angeles, who I've never met. I've been friendly with on Instagram through a couple of DMs just to let him know I'm a fan. But Chad Damiani. And I listened to a podcast that kind of was, he laid out his origin story of being a writer and falling into a job with a kind of an early career move with WCW, World Championship Wrestling, and him just learning the business, learning the wrestling business that way. And then years later in Hollywood, doing improv, doing comedy, writing screenplays, and having this light bulb moment, realizing how much he loves performing clown and building a community around clowning. And he has a really terrific podcast called Stand Up and Clown. He has a show in LA called Stand Up and Clown as well. But his podcast, Stand Up and Clown, he's done a lot of episodes at this point, doing a much better job than I can do, explaining the terminology of wrestling and how it also applies to clown performance. So look out for those episodes. And they're short too, not like this. But, like 20 minutes per episode, he'll talk about kayfabe as a clown, about selling as a clown, about, the importance of entrances in wrestling and in clowning. And I love that shit. And hi, Chad, if you ever listen to this. Hello. I'd love to talk about wrestling and clown with you one day. Finally, I want to end on this note. One terminology I've alluded to, but I didn't say yet. Okay, but just the idea of a champion, right? What is a champion in wrestling? Well, visually, it's the one that holds the big shiny belt, right? And hoists it above their head when they win it in a big important match, right? They win the belt, they carry the belt, and the belt, the title, is what represents excellence and being on top of the company, being the number one fighter in the roster, in the locker room, and being the one who represents, right? You can either be a babyface champion or you could be a heel champion. You could be somewhere in between. But for a minute there, let's think about the babyface champion, right? The face of the company, the one who represents everything good and right and heroic and tough and persistent about wrestling. They're the champion, right? Champion as a noun. But something I've been thinking a lot about lately is champion as a verb, right? Champion as a verb, to champion something. What does it mean to champion something? It means to represent. It means to live it. It means to spread your awareness of it and everything that is virtuous about it. I champion this. I champion you, the people, the public, right? And knowing this, I think about what it means to be a clown champion. How does one become a clown champion? There's no title belt to win. There's no league where this is some kind of competition where you're up and down the leaderboard and then your big clown show in competition with another clown show determines the transfer of the clown championship title from them to you. That doesn't really exist. That can exist in some kind of metaphorical term, I guess. I could get a job in the circus and then I could be cast as the lead clown above some other clown that's held that title, right? But that doesn't fully exist. But what does exist is championing clown as a verb. And a big part of my dream, a big part of my intention with doing this podcast, a big part of my intention with teaching clown at Brooklyn Comedy Collective, a big part of performing around town at shows like Fool Around the Block and Idiot's Hour is to be clown champion, to champion what I think is right and good and necessary about clown. The compassion, the connective tissue of audience to performer, that magic circle that we can invite the public into. Everything good about clowning that I know, to champion my legacy from Kevin Schmevin, my father, to my mentors, Wavy Gravy, Patch Adams, Gene E. Taylor, to my compatriots in this clown community forming in New York City, Tally Medell, Julian Hernandez, Chris Manley, Jeff Seal, Ethan Lindout, Gigi Del Rosario, Matthew Silver. There's something here. There's something about championing the artistry. There's something about championing the craft, championing the tradition, championing the ethics that I believe make up the essence of this art form in the 21st century. So, this podcast, Clash Clown, in some roundabout way, this is me on my journey to be clown champion by championing clown and clowning. So I could really use a catchphrase to cap this off. This is called cutting a promo. But okay, here it is. Both wrestlers and clowns at their best, they look up into the cheap seat. They look up into the cheap seats, and with that glint in their eye, with that dream in their heart, they make a promise to the public. A big promise that one day, through it all, they're going to achieve their dreams. They're going to be clown champion. So, Clash Clown, this is my practice. This is my setting my intention out there to be clown champion. And yeah, that's the episode. That's what I wanted to get out today. Oh, God. Maybe next week we should just finally do it. Let's talk about fascism. Let's talk about anti-fascism. All right. Thank you for joining me. Be sure to email me at clashclownpod@gmail.com. If you want me to talk about something specifically, if you want me to answer a question that you've had, if you want to just let me know what part of this show has resonated with you, please email clashclownpod@gmail.com or look me up on Instagram, Riley Soliner. And thank you for listening. You know what? Treat yourself today. Do something that makes you happy. Just put on a clown nose or something. I don't know. Okay, look. Okay, I'm tapering off. I'm spinning out, man. Okay. Hey, here we go. Let's hit the melodica. Clash Clown. Ha! Get along, get along. Bye-bye.